Just after midnight, radar operators across Israel began seeing something unusual. Not one missile, not even a small wave, but multiple incoming tracks appearing on radar screens at the same time. Within minutes, air raid sirens started echoing across Israeli cities as the country's missile defense network moved into emergency interception mode. According to early military reports, Iran launched a massive barrage of ballistic missiles toward Israeli territory, triggering one of the largest missile alerts since the conflict began. Residents in several regions rushed into shelters while Israeli air defense systems, including Iron Dome, David's Sling, and the Arrow Interceptor network, attempted to destroy incoming threats in the sky. Explosions were soon reported in multiple areas as interceptors collided with incoming missiles high above the cities. Videos circulating online showed bright streaks of light crossing the night sky, followed by flashes as interceptor missiles struck their targets. But when dozens of missiles are launched at once, the challenge becomes far more complicated. Modern missile defense systems are highly effective against small numbers of incoming threats. However, when large waves of missiles arrive simultaneously, defenders must make rapid decisions about which targets to intercept first. This tactic is known as saturation attack strategy. The goal is simple: overwhelm the defense system with more missiles than it can intercept at once. Even if most missiles are destroyed, attackers hope that some will slip through the defensive shield. Iran has spent years developing exactly this kind of missile capability. Western intelligence estimates suggest Iran possesses one of the largest missile arsenals in the Middle East, with more than 3,000 ballistic missiles of varying ranges. Many of these missiles can reach targets across the region, including Israel, but the latest barrage signals something even more concerning. Instead of isolated missile launches, analysts believe this attack may represent a coordinated escalation in the ongoing regional war. And when ballistic missiles begin flying across national borders in large numbers, the situation can change very quickly. Because once the first wave of missiles is launched, the next question is how the other side will respond. And in the Middle East, retaliation often comes fast. To understand how Israel responds to large missile barrages like the latest Iranian attack, it is important to look at how the country's multi-layered missile defense system actually works. Israel does not rely on a single defensive shield. Instead, it operates a three-tier defense network designed to intercept different types of threats at different altitudes and distances. This system includes Iron Dome, David's Sling, and the Arrow missile defense system. Each layer plays a specific role in protecting Israeli airspace. The first and most well-known system is Iron Dome. Iron Dome was originally designed to intercept short-range rockets and artillery shells, particularly those fired from nearby areas such as Gaza or southern Lebanon. The system works through a combination of radar tracking and rapid response. When a rocket is launched, Iron Dome's radar detects it almost immediately and calculates its trajectory within seconds. If the rocket is predicted to land in an open area, the system ignores it to conserve interceptor missiles. But if the rocket is heading toward a populated area or important infrastructure, Iron Dome launches a Tamir interceptor missile. The interceptor approaches the incoming rocket and detonates nearby, destroying it midair before it reaches the ground. For larger and more advanced threats, Israel relies on the second layer, David's Sling. David's Sling is designed to intercept medium-range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and heavy rockets that travel faster and farther than typical short-range threats. Its interceptor missile, known as Stunner, uses a hit-to-kill system. Instead of exploding near the target, it physically collides with the incoming missile at extremely high speed. This direct impact increases the probability of destroying the target completely. But the most powerful threats, such as long-range ballistic missiles launched from Iran, are handled by the Arrow defense system. The Arrow system represents the highest defensive layer. Missiles like Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 are designed to intercept ballistic missiles at very high altitudes. In some cases, interceptions can occur outside the Earth's atmosphere, before the enemy missile even begins its final descent toward Israel. This early interception is important because it gives defenders more time and additional chances to destroy the incoming threat. For example, if the first interceptor fails, additional missiles can be launched during the missile's descent phase. All three of these systems are connected through an integrated command network. Radar stations, satellites, and early warning systems feed data into centralized control centers that coordinate the interception process. This allows Israel to respond to multiple incoming threats at the same time. But even the most advanced missile defense network faces a serious challenge during large-scale attacks. When dozens or even hundreds of missiles are launched simultaneously, the defense system must prioritize targets, manage interceptor supplies, and react within extremely short time windows. This is why large missile barrages are designed specifically to test the limits of defensive systems. Because in modern missile warfare, the battle is not just about technology. It is about speed, coordination, and the ability to intercept more missiles than the attacker can launch. When analysts evaluate a large missile barrage like the one launched by Iran, the most important question is not simply how many missiles were fired, The real question is how those numbers compare with the defensive capacity of Israel's missile shield, because missile warfare often becomes a contest between attack volume and interception capacity. Let's start with the attacking side. Western intelligence estimates suggest that Iran possesses more than 3,000 ballistic missiles of various types, making it the largest missile arsenal in the Middle East. These missiles range from short-range battlefield weapons to longer-range systems capable of traveling 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers, placing Israel well within range. But Iran rarely relies on ballistic missiles alone. Its strategy often involves combining ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones in the same attack. Each type of weapon travels at different speeds and altitudes, making the defensive challenge more complicated. In addition, Iran's regional allies also possess significant rocket arsenals. Hezbollah in Lebanon, for example, is believed to possess tens of thousands of rockets and missiles, with some estimates suggesting as many as 100,000 projectiles stored in launch sites across southern Lebanon. During large escalation scenarios, Hezbollah could potentially launch hundreds of rockets per day. Now let's examine the defensive side. Israel's missile defense relies heavily on interceptor missiles. For short-range threats, the Iron Dome system uses the Tamr interceptor missile. Each Tamr interceptor costs roughly $40,000 to $70,000, depending on the production batch. During a large rocket barrage, multiple interceptors may be launched simultaneously to ensure destruction of incoming targets. For medium-range threats, David's Sling uses the Stunner interceptor missile. These interceptors are significantly more advanced and can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per missile. For long-range ballistic missiles, Israel relies on the Arrow interceptor system, which is designed to destroy enemy missiles at high altitude or even outside the atmosphere. Arrow interceptors are among the most expensive defensive missiles in operation, with estimated costs reaching $2 to $3 million per interceptor. Despite these costs, Israel's missile defense systems have demonstrated high effectiveness in past conflicts. Iron Dome interception rates are frequently reported between 85% and 90%. Depending on the size of the attack and the number of incoming rockets. However, interception success rates can vary during massive barrages. When dozens or hundreds of missiles arrive at the same time, the defense system must prioritize which threats to intercept first. Missiles predicted to strike populated areas receive the highest priority. Others may be allowed to fall in open areas to conserve interceptor supplies. This dynamic creates a strategic balance. Attackers attempt to launch large waves of missiles to overwhelm defenses, while defenders attempt to intercept the most dangerous threats while preserving interceptor inventories. In other words, missile warfare becomes a battle of numbers, timing, and endurance. Because the ultimate question is not simply whether a missile can be intercepted. The question is whether the defense system can continue intercepting wave after wave without running out of time or interceptors. To understand the strategic escalation between Iran and Israel, it is important to look beyond the missile launches themselves and examine the broader military objectives of both sides. The current confrontation did not emerge overnight. The crisis escalated sharply after Israel launched a large preemptive military operation against Iranian targets in late February 2026, striking military infrastructure and strategic sites in multiple Iranian cities. The operation, often referred to as Operation Lion's Roar, was designed to degrade Iran's missile capabilities and limit what Israel viewed as growing threats from Tehran's ballistic missile and nuclear programs. In response, Iran began launching waves of ballistic missiles and drones across the region, targeting Israeli territory as well as American and allied facilities. According to various reports, Iran has fired more than 500 missiles and nearly 2,000 drones since the start of the war phase, with roughly 40% of those attacks aimed directly at Israel. From a strategic perspective, Iran's approach relies heavily on asymmetric warfare. Iran knows it cannot match Israel's air force or advanced technology directly. Instead, Tehran uses three main tools: large missile arsenals capable of reaching Israeli cities, drone attacks and cruise missiles designed to confuse radar defenses, regional proxy forces, including Hezbollah and other allied groups. This strategy creates pressure on Israel from multiple directions at once. Missiles may be launched directly from Iranian territory, while rockets and drones could arrive from Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, or Yemen. The goal is to stretch Israel's missile defense systems across multiple fronts simultaneously. Israel, however, relies on a very different strategy. Its military doctrine focuses on air superiority and rapid counterstrikes. Rather than waiting for repeated missile barrages, Israel attempts to destroy the threat at its source. That means striking missile launchers, storage depots, command centers, and radar systems before additional attacks can be launched. Israeli airstrikes have targeted missile bases, military infrastructure, and Revolutionary Guard facilities inside Iran and Lebanon as part of this strategy. In essence, the war has become a race between two opposing strategies. Iran attempts to overwhelm Israel with repeated missile barrages. Israel attempts to eliminate those launch systems before the next wave can begin. But as both sides continue escalating their operations, the conflict risks expanding beyond a limited exchange. Neighboring countries are already on high alert as missile and drone attacks begin affecting wider parts of the Middle East. And that raises the most dangerous question of all. If missile exchanges continue to intensify, could this conflict evolve from a regional confrontation into a much larger war? Because in modern warfare, once large-scale missile exchanges begin, controlling escalation becomes extremely difficult. If the missile conflict between Iran and Israel continues to escalate, the consequences will not remain confined to the battlefield. They could rapidly spread across the global economy. The Middle East sits at the center of some of the most important energy corridors and shipping routes on Earth, and any instability in this region can immediately affect global markets. One of the most critical locations is the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway connects the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea and serves as one of the most important oil transit routes in the world. Every day, roughly 20 to 21 million barrels of oil pass through the Strait of Hormuz. That represents almost 20% of global oil consumption. Major oil exporting countries such as Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates rely heavily on this route to transport energy supplies to international markets. If the Iran-Israel conflict expands and threatens shipping in this area, oil markets could react almost instantly. Even minor disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz have historically caused sudden spikes in oil prices. Analysts frequently warn that a serious conflict affecting the waterway could push oil prices above $120 or even $150 per barrel, depending on the scale and duration of the disruption. But oil exports are only one part of the story. Another key maritime choke point lies further west at the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, located between Yemen and the Horn of Africa. This route connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden and ultimately to the Suez Canal, one of the busiest global trade corridors. Roughly 12% of global trade moves through the Suez Canal every year. Container ships traveling between Asia and Europe depend on this route to transport electronics, raw materials, consumer goods, and energy shipments. If missile attacks or naval tensions spread across these waters, shipping companies may decide to avoid the region entirely. Instead, vessels could be forced to reroute around the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa. Such detours can add 10 to 15 days to global shipping journeys, dramatically increasing transportation costs and delaying supply chains. Insurance costs for commercial ships operating in conflict zones could also surge. Shipping companies may be required to pay significantly higher premiums due to the risk of missile strikes, drones, or naval confrontations. Financial markets tend to react quickly to these types of geopolitical risks. Stock markets, currencies, and commodity prices often fluctuate sharply whenever instability threatens major trade routes or energy supplies. Industries ranging from aviation to manufacturing could face rising fuel costs and disrupted supply chains. In other words, the economic impact of a regional missile war could extend far beyond the countries directly involved. A conflict between Iran and Israel would not just be a military crisis, it could become a global economic shock, affecting markets, energy prices, and trade routes across the entire world. As the night fades and the smoke from intercepted missiles slowly disappears from the sky, the deeper reality of this crisis begins to emerge. The massive Iranian missile barrage was not just another exchange in a long history of regional tensions. It was a reminder of how quickly modern conflicts can escalate and how interconnected today's world has become. Hundreds of missiles launched in a matter of hours. Air defense systems firing interceptors across the night sky. Entire cities pausing as sirens warn millions of civilians to seek shelter. This is the new reality of modern missile warfare. Conflicts are no longer defined only by armies crossing borders. They are increasingly fought through long-range missiles, drones, cyber operations, and precision strikes that can reach targets hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away. And in a region like the Middle East, where multiple rival powers operate within close geographic distance, the margin for miscalculation becomes extremely small. For Israel, the challenge is maintaining a defensive shield capable of intercepting wave after wave of incoming missiles. For Iran, missile power represents one of the most effective ways to project force across the region without relying on traditional military confrontation. But beyond these two countries, the entire world is watching closely. Energy markets react within minutes to news of attacks. Shipping companies adjust routes as soon as new threats appear. Financial markets fluctuate as investors attempt to anticipate the next escalation. In other words, the consequences of this conflict are not limited to the battlefield. They ripple outward through the global economy, international diplomacy, and security alliances. The events unfolding now could influence not only the future of the Middle East, but also the balance of power between major global actors. And that is why moments like this, moments when missile barrages light up the night sky, are watched so carefully by governments, military planners, and analysts around the world. Because the next move by either side could determine whether this crisis remains a limited confrontation or expands into something far more dangerous. If you want to understand the strategies, technologies, and geopolitical forces shaping modern warfare, make sure you stay connected to this channel. Because the story unfolding in the Middle East is still developing, and the next escalation could change the course of this conflict overnight. Stay informed, stay aware, and keep watching as the world's most complex geopolitical crisis continues to evolve.